Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. Today's video is an unexpected one. I wasn't planning on making it. The book that I was planning on talking about, I actually haven't finished yet. And that's because I read all 3 books in this series that I'm going to talk about within the last week. They took me by surprise, and I figured if they clicked with me so well that I read all of the available books in a series in such a short amount of time, they deserve to be talked about here. The books are the Saint of Steel books by Kingfisher. They are fantasy-leaning fantasy romance, but adventure as well. I first heard about these books because Kingfisher is both traditionally published and she also independently publishes. She traditionally publishes a mixture of horror and children's books. She wrote The Wizard's or the Witch's Defensive Guide to Baking, and most recently published is Nettle Bone, which is an adult fantasy that I've heard has a great sense of humor but leans very dark. While I was waiting for my library hold of Nettle and Bone, I stumbled across this Reddit thread that was asking the general question, what fantasy books have stories where the church in the story isn't the bad guy? Because that is a very common trope that we do see in fantasy. So skimming through some of those responses, and the Saint of Steel series, Paladin's Grace by Kingfisher, and they mentioned it was fantasy romance. Both of those little nuggets of information tweaked my interest, and I was able to go find Paladin's Grace right away. I'm so glad I did because they clicked with me, right book, right place. I thoroughly enjoyed them, and please just let me tell you about them for a couple of minutes. The series is called The Saint of Steel. Each book follows a main character who is, or once was, a paladin of the god called the Saint of Steel. So in this world, which is a medieval feeling kind of world, but there's also other creatures like gnolls, which are badger-like creatures that live in the cities with humans. There are different deities that exert real power on the world. The Temple of the White Rat, they are a very practical church. They care about the logistics of helping people survive better. They are the lawyers. They arrange food and shelter and things like that. The Saint of Steel was more of a protection kind of god. That god would call upon brilliant warriors to become his paladins. Whenever the god's tide would come over them, they would basically become berserkers. However, they would only kill the bad guys or whoever the god pointed them at, and they would never harm innocent people. So while the tide was in them, they were very, very dangerous, but only to the bad people, which opens up this other kind of moral question later on in the series. But that's the basic foundation. 4 years ago, from where our story started, the Saint of Steel, the god, died. And the moment that he died, the members of his church, the paladins, the acolytes, the priests, everybody felt it. They all went a little bit mad. So the paladins started just going berserk. They didn't really know what to do. This god that has been, they've been able to feel his presence, just died, and it was painful to them. Out of all of that, out of the entire church in the area where this Saint of Steel had heavy influence, because different geographical areas, different churches may have more or less influence. Only 7 of the paladins remained. So the paladins were the warriors, the berserkers. Only 7 of them remained. Main character that we're following in the story is Stephen, and he was one of those paladins. At the time, to try to make them safe and kind of protect other people, the Church of the White Rat took these 7 survivors in and took care of them and helped to try to rehabilitate them. But all of them are a little bit broken, so to say, in some way or another, and they're afraid that at any moment the tide may take them and they won't be able to snap out of it. So they may go berserk, and someone may not be there who's able to get them out of it before they start hurting innocent people. But the god, the White Rat, doesn't call battle people to its service, so it kind of works out very well. Now, this Temple of the White Rat in this town, they have some well-trained people around who can protect them, who can go work on guard duty, who can be sent to break up fights if needed. Basically, it gives the Saint of Steel Paladins sort of a sense of a reason to keep living. that's the backdrop that we're walking into. So it's 4 years later, and Stephen has been sent on guard patrol with a doctor from the White Rat, and they are going to go out into the city where there have been some murders and beheadings lately. Stephen helps save the life of a woman. One thing about paladins is they're very helpful to have around because they always carry around so much guilt and wanting to help people that it's just kind of like a personality trait of paladins that people kind of make fun of them for. But I do think Stephen has a very good sense of humor, and also T. Kingfisher's writing has a very good sense of humor. He meets this woman, this perfumer, helps and get her out of the trouble that she's in, and they expect never to meet again. Grace, though she may just be a perfumer, her landlord and best friend is a spy for a rival city. That doesn't bother Grace too much. All she wants to do is be able to perfect her recipes, discover new scents, and lay low because she's running from something in her past. But when Grace's spy friends' political machinations end up with both of them at the palace, Grace and Stephen meet again, and the wider plot starts. There's these beheadings that they're dealing with, there's this political story that they're dealing with, and then there's also this relationship between them. Stephen's not really sure if he can trust them because he knows the friend is a spy, and Grace has had some really bad experiences in the past. I don't know how well that I did it justice. I have a hard time not just labeling these books cozy fantasy, because even though aspects of it do feel very cozy, the writer's sense of humor, the relationships that are built between characters in the story, even though a lot of it feels very cozy, and I think that's one thing that I love about it, T. Kingfisher is also a horror author, and so some of the stuff that's going on definitely falls in the realm of horror, and it kind of helps propel the plot of these mysteries that they're trying to solve. And so it's a really great mixture of a unique fantasy setting with characters that I really enjoyed, and also a plot that is interesting. So the series is 3 books long so far. Each book has followed a different paladin. There is an overarching story across all of them, but you can read them alone. They are self-contained enough that if you wanted to stop after book 1 or book 2, you could do that. I really love one of the characters that we meet in book 2, so I would encourage you to at least read book 1 and book 2. But I really hope that there are more books in the series coming, because I feel like there could easily be 7 books worth of stories here, and T. Kingfisher is definitely imaginative enough to make them all feel different and pull it off. So I can't really rave about them anymore. I read all 3 of them within about a week. I finished one and was like, well, I gotta read the next one. Then I gotta read the next one. So I got hooked. I don't know if more are coming because these are independently published by this author, and I'm sure she has to write for the contracts that she has with Tor and her other publishers, but fingers crossed that we'll be getting more in the future. In the meantime, if you enjoy fantasy, especially fantasy romance, or fantasy with a dash of horror in it, if you like well-written characters that are very deep, they have some really great conflict going on that really impacts how they interact with other characters. There's great banter, there's great camaraderie between the different characters in the books. There's plenty of plot, and there is plenty of high emotion and worry for these characters and angst to kind of keep you reading. Please check out The Saint of Steel. I almost want to go message the author on Twitter and say, are we going to get any more books? Because I just have to know, because right now I feel bereft. I just want more. So that's where I'll leave it today. Unexpected favorite of the month so far, The Saint of Steel by T. Kingfisher. And now I'm very excited to get my hands on Nettle Bone and the Wizard's Defensive Guide to Baking, because that just sounds cute. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read these books, or if you know of books similar to these that you think that I may enjoy. If you've heard anything about whether there's going to be more Saint of Steel books in the future, please let me know. But until next time, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks.